Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a breakdown of a classic financial philosophy that literally shifts how we view wealth. We're looking at the core concepts from the phenomenal book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, if you think having a giant pile of cash is what makes someone truly wealthy, well, this explainer is going to challenge that assumption right out of the gate. We're going to look at money exactly how the wealthy look at it. Because if you want to build wealth, you've got to think like them first.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this one fundamental difference sets the stage for everything we're about to cover. Wealth isn't just about the cash in your pocket, it's entirely about how you think. One of the absolute greatest lessons here is the distinction between being broke and being poor. Bankruptcy, or being completely out of money, is just a temporary state, right? It's a phase that passes. Poverty, on the other hand, is an eternal mindset. You could literally have millions of dollars handed to you, but with a poor mindset, you're going to lose it all. Conversely, you can start with absolutely zero, but with a wealthy mindset, it's really only a matter of time before you create massive wealth.
Section 1. Two Dads, Two Mindsets.
To really wrap our heads around this, the source material draws this brilliant comparison between two father figures, the highly educated but financially struggling poor dad and the middle school educated but incredibly wealthy rich dad. Just take a look at these two men. Both worked incredibly hard throughout their lives. Both were super successful in their respective fields, and both actually earned a very high income. Yet, look at their end results. They are complete polar opposites. The highly educated dad on the left, despite having a doctorate, struggled financially his whole life and actually left behind unpaid debts. The dad on the right, who barely even finished the 8th grade, became one of the richest men in Hawaii and left behind tens of millions of dollars to his family and to charities. So why? It all comes down to their philosophies.
You see, it all starts with their core beliefs about money itself. The poor dad firmly believed that the love of money was the root of all evil in the world. He basically blamed the pursuit of wealth for society's problems, poverty, and greed. But the rich dad flipped this completely on its head. He believed that the lack of money and the poverty it brings was the true source of struggle, theft, and hardship.
And this difference in belief, it totally bled into their daily language, which is incredibly powerful. The poor dad would look at something he wanted and just say, "I can't afford it." The rich dad absolutely refused to use those words. Instead, he asked, "How can we afford it?" Think about that. When you say, "I can't afford it," your brain just shuts down. The conversation is over. But when you ask a question like, "How can I afford it?" you essentially force your mind to go to work, to find creative solutions, and to open up new possibilities.
Naturally, this built right into their actions too. The poor dad's advice was always to play it safe when it came to money. Don't take chances. But the rich dad believed that avoiding risk entirely is just a massive trap. You simply can't grow without risk. His advice wasn't to go out and be reckless, but to learn to manage risk. It's all about education and calculated moves, not just blind fear.
But maybe the most striking difference was how they viewed their responsibilities. Both dads had families to feed, but the exact same life circumstance was used as a total excuse by one and as the ultimate motivation by the other. The poor dad said, "I have kids, so I can't take financial risks." The rich dad looked at his kids and said, "I have a family, therefore I must be rich to provide for them." It's the exact same situation, just viewed through two completely different lenses.
Section 2. Assets versus liabilities. And this brilliantly illustrates the divide, bringing us to one of the most controversial but absolutely crucial points of our source material, how these two dads viewed the family home. Most people, just like the poor dad, consider the house they live in to be their greatest asset and their biggest investment, right? But the rich dad looked at the actual reality. A primary residence incurs property taxes, constant maintenance, utility bills, and mortgage interest. It takes money out of your pocket every single month. Therefore, according to the mindset of the wealthy, a personal home is actually a liability, not an asset. An asset is strictly defined as something that puts money into your pocket. If it drains your cash flow, it's a liability. Simple as that.
Section 3. The 10-cent lesson. So how does anyone actually learn to acquire true assets and think like the wealthy? Well, let's take a trip to 1956 Hawaii, where a 9-year-old boy named Robert watched his wealthy classmate get picked up in this luxurious car. Realizing he definitely wasn't wealthy, Robert asked his highly educated, poor dad how to get rich. His dad simply said, "Use your brain and learn how to make money."
Well, young Robert took that literally. He and his friend Mike went around collecting empty lead toothpaste tubes, melted them down, poured the lead into plaster molds, and literally started manufacturing their own coins in the garage. Yeah, these 9-year-olds accidentally started a full-blown illegal counterfeiting ring. When Robert's dad discovered the white powder everywhere and realized what they were up to, he had to break the news about federal law. But seeing their incredible drive, he told them that if they really wanted to learn how money works, they needed to talk to Mike's dad, the man who would become known as the Rich Dad.
So the boys go to meet Mike's dad, who runs several local businesses. Now, he doesn't sit them down in a classroom. He flat out refuses to lecture them like a traditional school teacher. Instead, he drops this profound quote on them: "I will teach you the way life teaches you." He insisted that fast decisions and real-world experience are really the only true ways to learn about business. He offered them a job, but they had to decide right then and there. No thinking it over.
The offer? 10 cents an hour. Yeah, you heard that right. They were to dust and clean the shelves in one of his convenience stores for 3 hours every single Saturday. 10 cents an hour was a shockingly tiny amount, even back in 1956. But remember, the rule was to make a fast decision. So, Robert swallowed his pride and took the deal.
And just like that, the rat race began for a 9-year-old. Every Saturday, he gave up his time to clean shelves for 3 hours. At the end of the day, he'd receive exactly 30 cents. What did he do with it? He bought 3 comic books at 10 cents each. By Wednesday, he was completely broke again. He did this for 4 agonizing weeks. He felt angry, exploited, and vastly underpaid. He was giving up his entire weekend for literal pennies. And get this, he hadn't even seen the Rich Dad since the day he was hired. Well, finally, Robert snapped. He marched right into the Rich Dad's office, stood in line with the other adult employees waiting to speak with the boss, and when it was his turn, he completely exploded. He accused the Rich Dad of being a crook, of breaking his promise to teach him anything, and of just exploiting child labor for cheap. Robert perfectly represented the classic employee mindset in that very moment, feeling overworked, underpaid, and aggressively demanding better conditions from the boss.
So the crucial point is, this was exactly the lesson the Rich Dad was waiting for him to learn all along. The Rich Dad calmly told Robert that in just 1 month, he sounded exactly like most of the employees he had ever hired and fired. This anger and this frustration, it's what practically every employee feels. And the trap is believing that a higher salary or a new job will just magically fix the underlying issue. It won't. If you get a raise, you usually just end up buying more expensive comic books, so to speak, and you're still broke by midweek.
Then, the Rich Dad delivered this harsh but incredibly vital truth. Check out this quote. "Stop blaming me. If you think I'm the problem, you have to change me. If you realize you're the problem, you can change yourself. It is incredibly difficult to change someone else, but it's entirely within your power to change your own mind. Looking outward and expecting a boss or a company to increase your wealth is a lifelong trap. True financial independence absolutely requires internal change."
Section 4. Make money work. Now, what's really interesting here is how it brings us to the true meaning behind that frustrating 10-cent job, and really, the ultimate thesis of the wealthy mindset. The Rich Dad wanted Robert to feel the sting of working for pennies so he would never ever want to do it again for the rest of his life. Because the ultimate truth is this: the rich do not work for money. Money works for them. The poor dad's path, the traditional path we're all taught, is to get a good education, find a safe job, and work for money until you're 65. But the rich dad's path is entirely different. The wealthy focus on acquiring assets, businesses, real estate, investments. These are systems where their capital does the heavy lifting. They don't trade their hours for dollars. They build systems that generate cash flow 24/7.
Which leaves us with this final, truly critical thought to evaluate in our own lives based on all these lessons. Are you currently caught in the trap of working for money, just hoping for the next raise to save you? Or are you actively shifting your mindset, learning to acquire true assets, and figuring out how to make your money work tirelessly for you? Because as we've seen today, the difference between those two paths is literally the difference between a lifetime of financial struggle and true generational wealth. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this sparks a brand new